The calm before the storm. Some men break when the truth hits them. Others? They were already ready. She sat across from me at a candlelit anniversary dinner, our anniversary dinner, took a slow sip of wine, and told me she'd cheated. Then smiled. Then said she'd do it again. She waited for me to shatter. She waited for rage, for tears, for the kind of explosion that would confirm she still had power over me. What she got was silence. A clean fork set gently beside a plate. And a man who had been quietly preparing for this exact moment for 8 long months. Stay with me. Because what Paul Garrison did next will change the way you see strength, dignity, and self-respect, forever. My name is Paul Garrison. I'm 54 years old. Corporate controller for a mid-size manufacturing firm. Father of 2. Homeowner, mortgage paid off 5 years early. I am not a dramatic man. I don't raise my voice. I don't beg. I don't break. For 26 years, I built a life from the ground up, brick by careful brick. I worked while others rested. I planned while others spent. I loved quietly, the way men of my generation were taught to love, through sacrifice, through showing up, through never letting the people who depended on me down. My wife, Angela, 52, sharp-tongued, beautiful in the way that could make you forget she was dangerous, had been my college sweetheart. We were supposed to be a team. A partnership. A forever. I was wrong about a lot of things. But I was never wrong about what I deserved. Open book the dinner. That Saturday started like any other. I came home from errands to find something unusual, Angela in the kitchen. She rarely cooked anymore, hadn't since the kids left home, said she'd done enough of it raising them. But there she was, standing at the stove in a black dress I'd never seen before, stirring something that smelled like expensive wine and poor decisions. "You're cooking?" I asked, setting my keys on the counter. She didn't turn around. Thought we could have a nice dinner. Just us. The table was already set. Candles. Cloth napkins. The good china we saved for holidays. Crystal glasses catching the last of the evening light. It was beautiful, and it felt staged, the way beautiful things sometimes do when someone has arranged them to soften a blow. We ate in near silence. She refilled her wine twice. I didn't touch mine. Something in her eyes, the way she kept glancing at me, then looking away, told me this evening wasn't about reconnecting. Then she set down her fork, leaned back in her chair, and smiled. Not warmly. It was colder than that. Triumphant. Even. "I need to tell you something," she said. I looked up. I had a one-night thing. A pause. Deliberate. Theatrical. And honestly, I'd do it again. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a fire already burning. She was waiting for the explosion. I could feel her anticipation pressing across the table like a physical thing. She wanted the shaking hands. The raised voice. The broken glass. She wanted proof that she still had the power to undo me. She had no idea who she was sitting across from. The calm. I picked up my fork. Took a bite. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. Set the fork down with deliberate care. "Okay," I said. Her smile faltered. "Okay? That's all you have to say." I stood up, carried my plate to the sink, rinsed it off, dried it, and placed it back in the cabinet where it belonged. Behind me, I could hear her shifting in her chair, confusion replacing confidence. "Paul, are you even listening to me?" I turned around. Looked at her directly. "I heard you." Then I walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. Because this, as much as it stung, wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation. And I had been preparing for this moment longer than Angela could possibly imagine. The folder on my laptop, labeled simply contingency plan, had been growing for 8 months. Bank statements. Email archives. Security camera footage she didn't know backed up to the cloud. Text messages between her and a man named Travis Keller, a consultant at her friend's marketing firm. They'd met at a networking event. I'd found the thread by accident. I'd followed it deliberately. I didn't react that night because I had already moved past reaction. I was operating in strategy. Sun with rays # Sunday morning, the first move. Sunday mornings used to have a rhythm. 6:30 wake up. Freshly ground coffee from that overpriced shop Angela preferred downtown. 1 cream, half a sugar, carried upstairs on the wooden tray her mother gave us. That Sunday, I woke at 6:30 and got dressed instead. Dress pants. Button-down shirt. The navy blazer I wore to quarterly board meetings. Cologne. Leather briefcase. By 7:15, I was walking downstairs, keys in hand. Her voice drifted through the bedroom door, groggy. "Paul? Are you making coffee?" I didn't answer. I walked to the kitchen, drank a slow glass of water, and looked out at the backyard, at the old swing set we'd built for the kids, rusted now but still standing. I remembered Logan at 5. Natalie at 3. Both of them laughing as I pushed them higher and higher while Angela was inside on the phone. Footsteps on the stairs. Faster now. She appeared in the doorway, hair messy, wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas, the one she called too expensive but wore constantly when she wanted to feel elegant. "Where are you going?" I picked up my briefcase. The password to the joint checking account has been changed. Her face went blank. "What?" "You heard me." I walked past her and out the front door. Through the windshield, I watched her face shift from confusion to anger to something approaching panic as she pulled out her phone and tried to log in. Access denied. I backed out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, she was still standing on the porch, barefoot, phone in hand, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. For the first time in years, I felt completely, bone-deep clear. Scales # the lawyer. I didn't go to the office. I drove 3 towns over to a coffee shop where nobody knew me, ordered a black coffee and a bagel, and sent a single email with the subject line, "Account access update." Recipients, our financial advisor, our accountant, our estate attorney. The message was 12 words long. Mr. Garrison has requested temporary restrictions on joint assets pending legal review. By noon, Angela's spa membership would bounce. By 2, her wine club payment would fail. By evening, the automatic payment on her car lease would be declined. I wasn't destroying anything. I was simply removing my participation, quietly, methodically, one piece at a time. By Monday, I was sitting across from Philip Crane, divorce attorney, former prosecutor, the kind of lawyer who didn't take cases he couldn't win. "She confessed," I said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. "Saturday night. Admitted it outright, said she'd do it again." I slid a thumb drive across the desk. Bank records. Hotel charges. Text message threads. Home security footage with full audio of the dinner conversation. Philip scrolled through the files in silence. Then he looked up. "This is thorough." "I'm a controller," I said. "Details are kind of my thing." He smiled. "Your attention to detail is about to save you a lot of money and a lot of headache." "Good. I want to file by end of week." "You understand this is going to get ugly. She'll fight back." "Let her fight. I have the high ground." We shook hands. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. The machinery was in motion. Legal. Methodical. Irreversible. When I got back to my car, I had 14 missed calls from Angela. I deleted them all without listening. She wanted my attention. Now she had it. Just not the kind she expected. The truth that rewrites everything. The deepest betrayal isn't always the one that hurts the most. Sometimes it's the one that redefines your entire past. Full mailbox with raised flag, the envelope. Wednesday afternoon, a manila envelope arrived. No return address. Just a lab logo in the corner. I'd ordered the DNA tests 3 weeks earlier, quietly, 1 kit for each of my children, collected during separate visits home. I told them it was for a family ancestry project. Neither questioned it. I opened the envelope in my car, parked 3 blocks from the house. Inside, 2 lab reports, clinical and indisputable. Case numbers. Timestamps. The kind of document that doesn't care about feelings. The first report confirmed what I'd expected and hoped. Logan, 29, my son, police officer, the young man who carried himself with a quiet pride I'd always recognized as a mirror of my own, 99.9% probability of paternity. My blood. My DNA. My son. The second report was different. Natalie, 22 years old. College graduate. The girl I had walked into kindergarten on her first day, holding her hand while she tried to pretend she wasn't scared. The girl I'd taught to ride a bike in the parking lot of a church, running alongside her with my hand on the seat until the exact moment I let go and she didn't fall. 0% probability of paternity. Excluded as biological father. I sat there for 10 minutes without moving, the paper trembling slightly in hands that were otherwise steady. The timeline, which I'd buried 22 years ago under layers of trust and willful blindness, surfaced now with devastating clarity. Angela had attended a work conference in Atlanta 9 months before Natalie was born. She came home different, quiet, distracted, distant in a way I'd told myself was just exhaustion. I'd pushed it down. Told myself I was paranoid. Told myself I was lucky to have her. I wasn't paranoid. I was just too willing to love someone who had already decided I was convenient. Telephone receiver, the call to Philip. I called Philip immediately. I have something else, I said. DNA results. Natalie isn't mine. A pause on the line. Then, you're certain? Confirmed. Tested both kids. Logan's mine. Natalie isn't. This changes the filing significantly. How do you want to handle it? I looked at the report again. At the numbers that had just rewritten 22 years. I don't tell Natalie. Not yet. She doesn't deserve to have her world destroyed because of her mother's choices. But I want this in the divorce filing. I want Angela to know that I know. That will be a significant card to play. She dealt the hand, I said. Crying face the moment alone. I drove home. Angela's car was gone, which was fine. I went to my office, scanned both reports, and added them to the file Philip would present in court. Then I sat at my desk and did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not for Angela. Not even for the marriage. I cried for Natalie, for the little girl who had called me daddy for 22 years and still called every Sunday to tell me about her week. For the girl who'd asked me, just last Christmas, if I would walk her down the aisle someday. Biology didn't change what we'd built. I was her father in every way that mattered, in every way that cost something, in every way that required showing up. But Angela had stolen something from both of us. She had looked me in the eyes every single day for over 2 decades and chosen the lie. That betrayal, quiet, compounded, relentless, cut deeper than the affair ever could. Speaking head in silhouette confronting Angela. When Angela got home that evening, I was in the kitchen making dinner. She walked in carefully. The way you approach something you're afraid might be dangerous. Paul, she said softly. Can we please talk? I plated the food. Didn't look at her. Tell me about Atlanta. The color left her face. What? 23 years ago. The work conference. Tell me about it. I don't understand what that has to do with. Who is Natalie's father, Angela? The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words came. That's what I thought, I said, and walked past her with my plate. Behind me, I heard her start to cry. Quietly at first, then deeper, the kind of crying that sounds less like grief and more like something collapsing under its own weight. I didn't stop. Didn't turn around. Didn't offer comfort. She'd had 22 years to tell me the truth. She'd chosen 22 years of silence instead. Now she would have to live inside the consequences of that choice. Police Officer Logan comes to the office. Thursday morning, my son arrived at my office in full uniform. Badge. Gun. The expression cops wear when they're about to ask hard questions. He closed the door behind him, arms crossed. Dad. What's going on? I turned my computer screen toward him, the DNA report, open on the desk. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he sat down heavily. Jesus. Yeah. Does Natalie know? Not yet. I don't want her to know until I figure out how to tell her, if I tell her. Logan ran a hand over his face. This is insane. I saw Mom with that guy last year and didn't say anything. I should have told you. This is not on you, son. Still, you didn't deserve any of this. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Logan straightened up, jaw set, eyes clear. I'm with you. Whatever you need. Mom made her choices. You're my father. That's it. When he stood to leave, he pulled me into the kind of hug men give when words aren't big enough. When he stepped back, he looked at me steadily. Mom thought you were weak because you're quiet. But I've watched you my whole life, Dad. He paused. You're the strongest man I know. After he left, I sat alone in my office for a long time. My son had my back. My daughter, biological or not, was still my daughter. And Angela was about to discover that 26 years of taken-for-granted loyalty, once withdrawn, cannot be bargained for. The process server would be at the house in 2 hours. By tonight, she'd be holding divorce papers. By next week, she'd be sitting across from her own lawyer, a bus-bench divorce attorney named Rick Brennan, 3 years out of law school, trying to understand how badly she'd miscalculated. Teacup with handle Natalie. The coffee shop. Thursday afternoon, Natalie flew home from Chicago and asked to meet, just the two of us. We sat in a coffee shop with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. She looked exhausted, eyes red from what I suspected was a flight spent crying. Mom called me, she said. Told me you're divorcing her over one mistake. Said you were being vindictive. A beat. So I called Logan. He told me the truth. My heart sank. Logan shouldn't have. Yes, he should have. I deserve to know. Her eyes met mine, direct, unwavering. Why didn't you tell me? Because you didn't need to carry that weight. I'm not a child anymore, Dad. I'm 22. I can handle the truth. Tears formed in her eyes, but her voice stayed strong. The DNA test doesn't change anything. You're my father. You're the one who sat through every dance recital, every parent-teacher conference. You're the one who helped me move into my dorm room and cried when you said goodbye. She reached across the table and took my hand. That's what a father is. That's what you are. We talked for another hour about her job, her apartment, the man she'd been seeing. Normal conversation. Warm conversation. The kind that doesn't need a catastrophe to be real. When we hugged goodbye in the parking lot, she held on a moment longer than usual. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. She stepped back and looked at me with something I hadn't expected to see. Not pity. Not sadness. Admiration. Logan was right, she said. You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. Including Mom. After she drove away, I sat in my car for a long time. Both of my children had chosen me, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but freely, clearly, with open eyes. Angela burned down a house and somehow left the people she meant to trap inside, standing safely in the open air. Clapperboard the ending. The following weeks unfolded the way carefully laid plans tend to. Methodically, inevitably, with a kind of quiet momentum that Angela had never anticipated because she had never believed I was capable of it. She tried to access retirement accounts. Locked. She called the investment firm. They referred her to their legal team. She left 8 voicemails in a single day. I didn't listen to one. She went to the country club, our country club, 15 years of membership, and tried to charge lunch to the account. Declined. She made a scene. Was politely asked to leave. Her lawyer, the bus bench attorney, filed a response denying adultery and requesting spousal support. Philip called it a butter knife going up against a gunfight. Settlement discussions began within days. No settlement, I told Philip. This goes to court. It'll cost more. Take longer. She wanted to play games. Now she gets to see how they end. Electric light bulb life lesson. Paul Garrison's story isn't about revenge. It was never about revenge. It's about the moment a man stopped performing dignity and started living it. For 26 years, Paul carried a life, not just his own, but Angela's version of hers, built on his silence, his stability, his willingness to absorb whatever she needed and ask for little in return. He made the coffee. He carried the tray. He showed up, quietly, every single day. And he thought that was enough. He thought love and loyalty, given consistently, would eventually be recognized and returned. But here is what Paul, and many of us, had to learn the hard way. Quiet strength is not the same as invisible weakness. And a person who mistakes your calm for compliance will, eventually, take too much. When Angela smiled across that dinner table and said she'd do it again, she wasn't confessing. She was testing. She wanted to see if Paul would finally break, and breaking, confirm her belief that he needed her more than he needed himself. He didn't break. He had already decided. There is a kind of power that only becomes visible when someone stops reaching for it. Paul never raised his voice. He never begged. He never performed his pain for anyone who hadn't earned the right to see it. He simply acted, quietly, legally, systematically, from a place of absolute clarity about what he deserved. That clarity, that is the real lesson. Know your worth before someone forces you to prove it. Document your reality. Build your contingency, not because you expect betrayal, but because self-protection is not the same as cynicism, it's self-respect made practical. And if you are ever sitting across a table from someone who smiles while they hand you the worst news of your life, remember Paul Garrison. Put down your fork. Stand up. And walk toward the version of yourself who was always worthy of more. Your calm is not weakness. It is the most dangerous thing in the room. The full story and final reckoning. The greatest thing a man can do for his enemies is become everything they said he couldn't. Before we begin, if you're new here, welcome. You've arrived at the final chapter of one of the most extraordinary stories we've ever told on this channel. And I want to ask you, right now, before we go any further, hit that subscribe button. Not because we're asking nicely, because what you're about to hear is the kind of story that changes the way you see strength, silence, and self-worth, and you're going to want to be here when the next one arrives. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Paul Garrison, 54 years old, 26 years married. The kind of man who believed in things. He believed in commitment. He believed in loyalty. He believed that if you showed up every single day, paid the mortgage early, ground the coffee, carried the tray, raised the children, kept your head down and your word intact, that the life you built would hold. He was wrong. But he wasn't naive. And there's an important difference. Naive men are blindsided. Paul Garrison had been watching. He'd noticed the distance in Angela's eyes, the irregular charges on her credit card, the hotel receipts that didn't match any trip he knew about. He'd found the text message thread with a man named Travis Keller 8 months before that dinner. And instead of confronting her in a burst of emotion, instead of giving her the drama she could use against him, he did something most people never think to do. He prepared. Bank records. Email archives. Security camera footage backed up to cloud storage she didn't know existed. A laptop folder labeled contingency plan that he'd been filling, quietly, patiently, like a man laying bricks in a wall no one can see until it's already finished. He found Philip Crane, divorce specialist, former prosecutor. He mapped the legal terrain. He waited. Then, on a Saturday evening that started with candlelight and ended with the coldest confession a spouse can hear, Angela set down her fork and told him she'd been unfaithful. And honestly, she said, smiling across the table they'd shared for a quarter century, I'd do it again. Paul Garrison picked up his fork, chewed slowly, set it down with deliberate care. Okay, he said. She expected the storm. She got the eye of it, that terrifying, still center where everything is already decided. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He rinsed his plate, put it away, and walked upstairs. By morning, her accounts were locked. By Monday, the spa, the wine club, the car lease, declined. By Tuesday, his attorney was drafting a petition for dissolution, citing adultery, backed by audio, video, and 8 months of meticulously gathered evidence. Angela fought back, the way people do when they're losing ground, loudly, desperately, in ways that only confirmed how completely she'd underestimated him. She hired a busbench attorney. She made a scene at the country club. She left voicemail after voicemail, 14 in a single day at one point. He didn't listen to a single one. Broken heart, the DNA. Then came the envelope. 2 lab reports. 2 children. 2 results. Logan, his son, his mirror, the young police officer who carried himself with quiet integrity, confirmed. 99.9%. His. Natalie, the girl he'd walked into kindergarten, taught to ride a bike, scared off bad boyfriends from, wept over when she left for college, 0%. Not his biological daughter. Angela had gone to a conference in Atlanta 23 years ago. Had come home quiet and distant. And Paul, trusting and in love, had buried the unease under a willingness to believe the best. He sat in his car for 10 minutes with those 2 reports in his hands. Then he called Philip, added the results to the filing, and went home to cook dinner. When Angela arrived, he asked her one question. Who is Natalie's father, Angela? The silence that followed lasted long enough to answer everything. Man #girl #boy, his children chose him. Logan came to his office the next morning in uniform and said 7 words that mattered more than any legal victory. You're my father. That's it. I'm with you. Natalie flew home from Chicago, sat across from him in a coffee shop, took his hand, and said, the DNA test doesn't change anything. You're the one who showed up. That's what a father is. That's what you are. Both of his children, one by blood, one by something deeper, had chosen him. Freely. Clearly. With full knowledge of everything Angela had done and everything she'd hidden. You cannot fabricate that kind of loyalty. You can only earn it, year after year, by being exactly who you said you were. Classical building # the aftermath. The divorce proceedings began in earnest. With Paul's evidence, the recordings, the hotel records, the text messages, the DNA report, Philip built a case that Angela's attorney could not meaningfully contest. Her spousal support claim was dramatically reduced. Asset division favored Paul substantially. Angela's social world, which had been built on the couple's shared reputation, began to fracture. Her book club friends grew quiet. The country club crowd distanced themselves. The comfortable life she'd taken for granted, all of it, had been quietly maintained by a man she decided wasn't paying attention. He had been paying attention the entire time. Paul moved into a smaller house, his choice, not a defeat. He furnished it simply. He kept the swing set photo on his desk. He had Sunday calls with Natalie and Friday dinners with Logan. He went to work, did his job, came home to a space that was entirely, uncomplicatedly his. And for the first time in over 2 decades, every morning felt like it belonged to him. Electric light bulb, the life lesson. What this story really teaches. We tell stories on this channel because stories do something that advice cannot. They show you, rather than tell you. They let you feel a truth before you have to live one. So here is what Paul Garrison's story shows. 1. Silence is not surrender. The most dangerous person in any confrontation is often the one who refuses to react on someone else's timeline. Angela expected Paul's calm to be weakness. It was control. It was strategy. It was a man who knew that every word spoken in anger is a weapon handed to your opponent. 2. Preparation is not cynicism, it is self-respect made practical. Paul didn't spend 8 months gathering evidence because he wanted to be right. He did it because he suspected something was wrong and refused to be caught unprepared by the truth. Loving someone does not mean disabling your own judgment. You can trust with an open heart and still keep your eyes open. 3. The people who love you will choose you, even when the truth is hard. Natalie didn't need biology to know who her father was. Logan didn't need a court order to know which side he was on. Real relationships, the ones that last, the ones that matter, are built on presence and integrity. Not genetics. Not history. Not shared last names. On who actually showed up. 4. Your worth was never in their opinion of you. Angela underestimated Paul because he was quiet. Because he was reliable. Because he didn't perform his value in ways that were easy to see. But quiet consistency is among the rarest and most powerful things a human being can offer. The tragedy is that it's often recognized only in its absence. 5. Moving forward is not about forgetting. It's about refusing to let someone else's choices determine your future. Paul did not hate Angela, or if he did, he didn't let hatred make his decisions for him. He acted from clarity, not rage. He protected himself legally, financially, and emotionally. And then he built something new. Smaller, quieter, and entirely his own. That is not a defeat. That is a man reclaiming his life. If you made it to the end of this story, all 3 parts, then you already know something about patience and commitment. You sat with Paul through every slow, deliberate move. You felt the weight of that dinner table, the silence of that car, the stillness of a man who had already decided. And I hope you carry something from this with you. Maybe it's the reminder that your calm is not your weakness. Maybe it's the permission to protect yourself without apology. Maybe it's simply the knowledge that the people who take you for granted are never seeing the full picture. Whatever it is, hold on to it. And if this story moved you, challenged you, or made you see something differently, we'd love to know. Leave a comment below. Tell us what landed. Tell us what part hit hardest. Your voice is what makes this community worth building. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And come back, because we have more stories like this one waiting. Stories about ordinary people making extraordinary decisions. Stories that remind us what dignity looks like when it's tested. We'll see you in the next one.